Nous allons commencer. C'est toujours le...
Okay. Let's start, please. We're just after lunch, so obviously a lot of people are not in the room yet, and we've started a bit late this morning as well. So let's begin. First of all, welcome. My name is Jean-Pierre Mikils. I am an activist, a member of the Brussels Communist Party, and I am the coordinator, together with Olga here, of the cultural network of the European left. So the network is organizing this particular culture assembly. This is the second culture assembly that we have organized in this hybrid format, just like the rest of the forum. And I'd like to, of course, welcome here all the participants that are not with us here in Brussels, but behind the screens somewhere. Welcome to all of you. This second culture assembly, organized within the framework of this fifth forum, intends to look at the social question at the heart of culture. And that social question at the heart of culture will allow us to talk about many different aspects. One, the status of artists. And we know that in many countries, artists are in a very precarious situation. They're not only living precarious lives, they are actually sometimes poor workers, and we need to do something about the actor status. The crisis and the pandemic have shown how important culture is for us, and how important it is to protect and preserve the main role played by actors in our societies. I think all artists should be allowed to make a living out of their work, just like any other worker in society. The second topic we'll talk about will be the working conditions. The status is the first step, but that status has to also be associated to proper, adequate working conditions. And I want to talk here particularly about harassment. This is obviously a key problem, not only in the field of culture, unfortunately, but dealing with all sorts of harassment is certainly a priority for anyone involved in culture and art. Then third dimension, migrants and asylum seekers. Again, culture is a universal value which brings human beings together, and through diversity allows them to enrich their respective life. And I think when you look at the border between Poland and Belarus and the tensions there, we've mentioned that already many times today, this situation, or the fact a southern Italian mayor was condemned by the justice system for being too open about migrants trying to cross the Med, or everything that's happening right now in the Channel, shows that culture must react and has a role to play in trying to do something about those crises. Now, before I give the floor to Olga and to our other guests here, I'd like to ask you in the audience not to leave immediately, because we'll be showing you a short movie. It's 3-4 minutes long, not more. But I think it's going to be an interesting film that will help you understand more visually, I would say, the link between culture and the social dimension of culture. You have the floor.
Thanks, Jean-Pierre, of your inspiring words to open this culture assembly. Second one, I'm happy to be part of it. And like we artists, I'm a conceptual artist, and like we artists, also the European Forum needs audience. And I think that we have to be very happy of all of you sitting here in Brussels, Tricoterie, but we also have to be very happy that we are, like in the opening session, we were told that we are 50 countries taking part in this European Forum. So I think we have succeeded in something. We can't see it here, but we are present. In many countries all over the Europe, we are following our debate, and the cultural debate is one of them. Of course, for us artists, is one of the most important issues. And yes, we are in the heart of the culture, and the heart of the culture debate is also now the social question. And I have here to left of my colleague from Helsinki, Finland, Ritva Harle. You are Ritva, sorry? Please use the mic.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I thought just talking with you. Yes, I am community and environmental artist from Helsinki.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You know, Ritva, we know each other from an organization called Artists and Performers for Nuclear Disarmament. We are activists there. So you came to this debate with a variety of perspectives, and we have been debating before, and you know that the European Left Cultural Network has a slogan, "No Europe without culture." So what do you, Ritva, think about Europe and culture? Could this be the opening question you could start of your presentation?
Not the world without culture. I think Europe is not only, it's not alone. We very often see the world, see only Europe, but there's the other world also. And the culture, we start always from ancient Greek, and we speak about that, and that's the culture. So maybe that's enough in this moment.
For some people, Europe is EU. What do you think about that limitation of Europe?
Just nothing in this moment. I don't think anything about it.
Okay, but if we consider culture without any group of people or community, where do we need culture there?
But where there isn't a culture. So what we are meaning when we are talking about culture, are we meaning just art, or are we meaning everything what people have done in this world? So I think we can say that everything is called a culture. We speak about sports culture. We speak about, some people think all the environment is culture. We speak about alcohol culture. So we have different kind of cultures.
Did you say alcohol culture?
Yes, many people speak about alcohol cultures. And in my work, for instance, I have been working a lot with alcoholic people, and they have their own culture. And yeah.
So if we can have, for the sake of the conversation, if we're going to have a limitation by telling that we're just interested right now in what artistic production and art has to bring to the overall essence and identity of Europe, as it is now or as we want it to be in the near future, what do you think about it? Do you think that arts can really be a vital part of the whole new European narrative for a more open, solidarity, democratic Europe, because let's face it, when there is a crisis and an economic one and a social one that goes with it, there are plenty of people in societies all over the world that think that art is something of an elitistic nature, and it's not the time to discuss about it because we have to discuss about survival first. Do you think that art can be a key of survival as societies?
I think the art has been the key of survival in all of the times. And in this moment, I think it's more important than it has been in a long time, because we have this polarization and we can't anymore talk, or maybe we can't just listen. We can talk, we talk a lot, but we listen less. And so we don't have a real dialogue with people. And I think the art should give some kind of tools people cross the borders, what we have done. Oh, sorry. With all those groups have built, they just stay in their own bubbles, and they don't meet the other bubbles, and they don't have a dialogue. But art maybe helps with this. Hope so.
So I hear a lot about ideas of participation.
Yes.
And it's not far away me saying that culture is one key issue in the participatory democracy process. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think it's just like that, because democracy, I think we try to solve problems, try to put ideas together, and we have to listen also each other. And I think this we have in this moment, we have lost a lot of these things. We don't have a dialogue.
So could cultural workers and artists help Europe be Europe?
Maybe, but I think art is free, and we mustn't give any what is that, tehtävä?
Task to...
We mustn't give any tasks to art. The artists, they find what they find, and then they maybe show it to others.
So you are talking about the independence of the artist.
Yes,
but
yes.
How about then, because art and culture is not the same thing. I think that culture, you can't buy culture. You have to make it.
Exactly.
How is it possible to make culture in Finland? Are artists and cultural workers happy with the current situation?
Oh, it depends in what kind of class you belong. If you artists normally they don't have very much money, but if they have rich parents or rich husband or wife, then they have money, or rich family. But if you are just a normal artist without this kind of support, you have had really hard times during this corona, because in normal world, artists, they are very hardworking people, because they are doing 1 or 3 or 4 temporary jobs and teaching so that they can do their own work. And in corona time, we have lost everything. There has been no teaching. Restaurants where you have been doing these temporary works, they have been closed. And we have had some support from state, but not enough. So people have had difficulties to buy tools, or it's difficult to get money to your rent. So it has been hard time. But the artists, they just do their work even it's difficult time. Then they start to work. They start to work about the difficult time.
I think this is a critical moment in our discussion because as people working in arts and civilization, it suits us better to make a dialogue than to have a personalized input. So I think this is the right time to have another artist together with us in this dialogue. And I would like to introduce to you, he's going to participate in video, Janis Panagopoulos, who is an actor, as I am. He comes from Greece, as I do. And he's going to discuss with us the very interesting yet shocking issue of what's happening with people working in the cultural sector as an artist of any kind, or just as professionals that support the cultural sector, what's going on with their working conditions, not only in pandemic times, which makes everything worse, as you've said, but also what it seems right to happen, because let's face it, people working in the artistic and cultural sector are seldom being regarded as people who are not actually working. So their condition is not very much interesting even to people that works in other sectors. Let's face it, we have a global situation nowadays that is linked and connected with the Me Too movement and started for many countries from the cultural sector, because people that have to do with the cultural sector are easily regarded as people that, okay, they can have some more free inputs and ideas about what it is to save your personality and what it is to let others the possibility to really harm your personality. So good evening, Yannis from Brussels.
Good evening to you too. First of all, I would like to excuse myself because I think I have an unstable internet connection, so sometimes I cannot hear you properly. So I would ask you to excuse me. And first of all, and above all, I would like to thank you for having me in this panel. It's a great honor, and at the same time, a great opportunity to talk about the conditions we are all facing in the cultural sector. Making a small introduction, I would like to say that it is historically proven that the most radical changes in the cosmos of art are caused by dramatic experience. If someone looks, I hear my voice back, so that creates some small problems. If someone looks back, you're sure to find out that the big events that closed cultural struggle and created a new one had always been problems. And I think that we are can I ask you to close the sound? Hear my voice again, it is extremely difficult. Can we solve that technical problem, please? I hear an echo.
Let me try again. Let's try again. I think the situation is going to ameliorate.
Yeah, maybe I think maybe you have to close your microphone, maybe. Or give me a second, maybe I need to close the translation. Now I think I don't hear the echo. Okay, thank you. As I said, it's we are all facing national troubles now. The regeneration, or let's say reconsideration of art, dire need. Of course, the arts contribute of political and economic dialectics, as well as build a bridge between social research and social intervention. The arts could themselves act as a medium actively involved in intellectual and artistic ferment, especially in a country such as Greece, which still struggles to find its own identity. Arts, society, and life itself might be combined in a way that performances, it's not only about showing anymore, but also acting and reacting to social phenomena. Within this year, as you have already mentioned, Olga, with the occasion of the pandemic, three major events in the arts world have been brought into light and have led into various protests, most of them trying to point out the seriousness of the legal, let's say, problem that we are all facing. And I am referring to the Greek reality. First of all, I don't know if you're all familiar with the creation of the Support Art Workers Initiative, but it was a really big thing in Greece after the finish of the first lockdown that we all faced. Second, the strength of all the unions in Greece, and I'm speaking especially for the Hellenic Actors Union, in which I'm chairman of international relations and member of the disciplinary board. And third, as you have already mentioned, the Greek Me Too movement. All of them share one common element and demand: the need to move forward from a past reality into a new, more hopeful tomorrow. When we discussed about my participation in your panel, I turned back to some of my notices that I've done, and I found out these lines that I would like to share with you. I found out that I have written down that the old world is based on the concepts of belonging, identity, and locality. Our world, always new, will be a world of radical subjectivities. It is precisely this conflict between these two worlds, the old one and the new one. These two worlds that we cannot separate from anachronistic, simplistic concepts like the concept of generations. There are two worlds with a dialectic. We are separated with a mental abyss. It is the old world that party rivalries, that still believes in leaders, will speak to them with simplistic generalizations and try to feed an anachronistic and almost dead popular sentiment. On the other hand, and I wish and I hope that we are all members of that new world, that we want to talk about politics, we want to talk about the government, exercise on our own bodies, we talk about rights, about freedoms, we would like to talk about self-determination, we talk about the full knowledge of the past and of our history. Nevertheless, I don't know how much time do I have. I don't want to use more than the time I'm given. As you said, we have faced a cultural crisis all these years. The overall climate fear that has spread in the Greek society, and it has resulted in a certain degree of hesitation by the public to visit all our rights and demands. Just want to give you some small data from the press release of the Hellenic Statistical Authority in July of 2020. It shows that the turnover in the first quarter of 2020 amounted approximately 65,000 euros, recording a decrease of 30% in comparison with the first quarter of 2019. And the largest decrease in turnover between the first quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2019, especially in the section of arts, entertainment, and creation. That creates a major problem in the cultural and art sector in general. As the pandemic is still developing, Greece is now facing a worsening situation. We are struggling to find solutions, put our demands towards the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Economics, to find solutions to our members and not only to our members. The cultural sector has been suffering for many years, and now we are trying to figure out how we come out of this shock. A concluding remark that creativity is a form of resilience in itself at any given time and space. Some art workers continue to create art even in these hard times. However, this has not been possible for others, such as those involved in production, distribution, and are employed in technical jobs, particularly affected professionals and with no real protection, including events, photographers, street musicians, street artists. These sectors is still been in great shock and needs to find its path towards how can I say, a way of dealing with that kind of problems. Closing, I would like to say that culture sector is its workers. Their voice must be heard and their guidance must become the basis of all kinds of measures. The social and economic rights of cultural workers must be enjoyed in the countries, mostly known as the cradle of democracy, along with the rights of all workers, and that have been systematically and brutally attacked by neoliberal policies, foreign debts, and non-transparent channeling of European and other funds within systematic state and mismanagement. This is a systematic problem Greece is facing, and I have to point it out. Thank you for your time and for your attention. I hope I made my state clear, and I'm here to answer any questions that they have arisen.
Thank you so much, Yannis. I have to repeat here that Yannis, as he himself introduced his intervention, is not only an actor, an artist, but he is among the people that are very genuinely involved in politics and social issues, as being an elected member of the executive board of the Hellenic Actors Association. And I have to tell you here, I'm sure that doesn't only happen in Greece, but almost everywhere, sooner or later it happens. Artists of any kind had been historically seen as people that we love to hate. That is, societies, even in critical moments, realize that they can't live without art. Not only because art makes them brighter or richer in spirit or in sentiments, but because it gives them the possibility to forget somehow the very upsetting reality they are facing by traveling into other worlds. But at the same time, because of this trip, let's say, artists are seen as not very down-to-earth people, so they are not very down-to-earth workers, so they are not very down-to-earth people as citizens. So it is very important, and we'll come back to that, to realize what is the input artists and working culture people have to give to societies, because it's through art that in the majority of circumstances we can break through and smash ideas of xenophobia, of racism, of patriarchy, of seclusion of any kind. So we love to hate artists, and we love to hate, unfortunately, for a great number of people, refugees and migrants as well. And I think now it's the time to have into our this evening discussion an artist who is also a migrant. Please introduce it.
Yes, first of all, thanks, Yannis, to Athens. And now I think we should try our connection to London, UK. I hope Dave Sohanpal is ready there. Let's see if we have the connection. This is almost like Eurovision Song Contest. Yes, very good, London. How are you, Dave?
Good, thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you. Could you please introduce yourself first, and so we hear you better and get to know you too?
Okay, hi, I'm Dave, and as called, you could say, or been labeled as a refugee or whatever it's been called by, the state government, basically. So, yeah.
Perfect. What is your point? We thought that it's always nice to know about the current situation, how you as artists are dealing with struggles. There are many struggles. Please choose.
Yeah. I mean, I'll echo all the struggles what everyone said, and obviously the lady whose name I just alluded me. I mean, yeah. I mean, when we had the pandemic, we needed art the most because people need to watch more films, listen to music, and it's great escapism as well. And or people start to paint or make some sort of creative art decisions. So in times of pandemic, I don't so we need less art. I think we need it more because it's for me art. I mean, I've never picked up art since I left high school, so that was like probably 17, 18. And obviously, I've been going to therapy, been recommended by my GP to release the traumas that I had. So I've been going to New Art Studio, and I guess I'm quite privileged. The studio is part of me, and I'm part of the studio as well because I get to release this trauma or depression or anxiety sometimes because people can't use to describe vocabulary to describe it through art. And I think art is a universal language. I mean, if I play the music in C, you may not speak English, or but you understand that's C. Same as well if you see a picture. I mean, as we know, like all the great artists, like Mozart, he died as a pauper. Van Gogh, no one liked him. No one liked his art when he was alive. He only sold one painting. So we could see, like, yeah, people like to hate art, or even especially from culture. If you're Asian, if you tell your parents you want to be an artist, they say like, "What? Are you crazy?" You only have three occupation: doctor, lawyer, or accountant. So, and I think with art, we all inspire or take something from another culture. So culture is always evolving. I mean, like fish and chips. Fish and chips, it's not a UK dish or Baltic curry. As we know, fried fish comes from South Spain, is a Jewish culture, and chips is added to the UK. So it's two culture mixed together, and you have fish and chips, or Baltic curry. You never had that. If you go to India, you never had that, but because uh, you British people have been in India for such a long time and they liked it, so they made their own version. So culture I think evolves and people adapt to culture, and I think that's a good thing as well because, like, as we know, when the Beatles needed inspiration, they went to India to get inspiration, and vice versa, like people go different places to get inspired or to get motivated. Culturally, I think it's it's a great barrier because we don't need to speak the language. If I don't speak French, I know what I like or what I don't like. I see a painting or a building or stuff like that, it makes me move, it resonates with me, or vice versa, like a food or anything. So that's all part of the culture, and I think culture is good to we should embrace it. And like again what Churchill said during World War II, why are we fighting for if we're going to cut the art fund? So I think we should always increase, because as we know, during the pandemic, as I said, like people were watching more television, listening to more music, making art, or and crafts, or doing some sort of thing, because it's a great escapism. Otherwise, your mind will be just staring at four walls. You couldn't go out. I mean, what do you do? So yeah. I don't know if you've got any more question or what before I just keep rambling on.
I would like to to ask for your thoughts on an issue from what you've already told us and what we do believe as artists, but also the broader audience of art, is that blending cultures, blending different identities is something that makes us as societies not only richer, but also stronger. I would like to ask you though,
Yeah, I would say definitely, yeah. I mean, our culture is always merging. I mean, culture is always changing. We adapt.
of course,
As I said, like fish and chips is never an English dish. It was fried fish, as you know, is a Jewish dish, comes from south of Spain, and they added chips, so it's come. And the same as way when the Beatles wanted inspiration, they went to India. So amalgamation of culture is always good. I mean, as long as it's not been hatred or put down, I think it's always good because we're always taking cultural from somewhere or something is going to be inspire us, you know, and that's why in the 17th century or 18th century we have European going all over the world taking artifacts and stuff like that and getting inspired because you know that's what culture does. Because if you like something, you would try to imitate it or mimic it or find out, and you know just like because I'll give you an example. Just because if I'm not from France doesn't mean I don't like French cooking or to get involved in or to learn more about the culture. I mean, that's just an example. And culture is always merging, you know, like punk. Punk was a great culture that was breaking down barriers, you know, you know, it was, you didn't need to have straight lines or I mean, as we can see, like art has changed quite a lot. Like we had like, you know, and some artists who were painting like Monet was people were saying like that's not a finished painting, but now it's revered and you know it's quite expensive, and so I think art is always like then you have like pop culture. People saying that's not art or Matt Lang just put a toilet seat and say that's art, but I mean who defines what is art, what is not art, or you know, and culturally always we are shifting, we are learning. As I said, like I can learn from as much as you can learn from me. So I mean having a culture is always a good thing because two cultures are better than one. That's what I say. But apparently, as you know, like in the UK, like people, you know, if you're a migrant, you're hated so much, or I know they have this stigma. Oh, you're coming here to steal our culture or erase it and stuff like that. And I mean, I've been writing and I tell people I'm not here to steal your culture. You know, I can, you know, as much as I can learn from you, you can learn from me too. So, you know, and bear in mind that Western world has colonized most of the countries before. So, I mean, obviously there's an influence in art, there's influence in every sort of, you know, possible way. So,
thank you. I think that you've made clear enough the issue that I was thinking about while listening to you, that it is a very strong answer to whoever believes that foreigners, let's say migrants, refugees, whatever, non-native people, and especially non-native artists of any kind, are a danger, a threat to European identity, to the pure European identity. First of all, there is no such thing as pureness in anything, let alone art, which never has been. So thank you for your input. And we are already having questions. I'm reading the first one because it is for you, dearest friend, and then I'll give the others to Juha-Pekka. What is the current situation of culture workers in Finland?
What situation?
Culture workers in Finland. What is the current situation?
We have our artists are very well organized, and we have our societies and unions, and so it depends. What are you looking? Are you looking musicians, opera singers, or are you looking painters, sculptors? So I can't say something that which is true to everyone. But lots of artists, their situation is difficult and hard. And these basic problems which we already had before COVID, of course, we have, for instance, in Helsinki, we don't have enough workrooms, we don't have enough places where to show the art, we don't have money. Yeah, all these kind of basic problems, and they all the time are. And we have this big union, it's called Suomen Taiteilijaseura. What is that?
Finnish Artist Association.
Yeah, and there we have some kind of, what is tavoite? Now I lose.
Aim, it's a target, an aim.
Target, yes, we have some kind of targets, and we try to get them always to the government, our Finnish government program, and sometimes we have get them to the government program, 1 line or 2 lines, but everything happens so slowly, and we have asked, I think, last 30 years that the cultural budget should be 1%, and it's half of it. And it haven't increased. And even we have the leftist, so much left people in our government, they are still going to cut cultural fund, and it's pity.
It is pity. I have a very good question here from the Zoom. Thank you, all people in the Zoom. The question goes like this. Do culture workers have a political responsibility? So I think this question is for Yannis, Dave, and Ritva. Do cultural workers have a political responsibility? Do they? What do you think, Yannis?
I just wanted to answer that also after Olga had mentioned that sometimes we are thought as if we are creatures that we don't care about society or politics. From my point of view, arts and politics and society, as I started my own introduction, they're so strongly connected. We have the political responsibility as members of our society. The social engagement that we all have through our works, through our own existence, through our daily routine, puts us among other members of the society to share these responsibilities. I mean, I cannot even think of not having political responsibility through my work or through my everyday existence. I don't know if I've answered to Mrs. Hilde. I cannot see the name right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Yannis. How about Dave? What do you say? Do you have a political responsibility?
I think art does do. I mean, I would like to share with you this film called White Riot. I guess you guys should check it out, because that's the only film that I know where music actually brought people together from the Asian community, the Black community, white community, unite them and to fight against the National Front in the UK during the 70s. So art has, got that power to unite people in a cultural sense. As I said, like, like for me, if I'm a foreigner and if I came here and I've listened to rock or hip hop, like, the my new generation may not understand, but the newer generation, the people here will understand me and will get me, and we have that common bond or that common team we share together. So it kind of unites us, and obviously any art form, especially in music, is always against, especially like hip hop or punk, was always rebelling against the government, going against the government, like Rage Against the Machine. I think we need a band like that now, or like hip hop, like Public Enemy, to talk about social injustice, economical injustice, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely art has the power. I mean, they're all intertwined, you know, they're linked, whether you might say it's a picture or whether it's an art form or whether it's a video, it's expression. I mean, it's going against the system, and that's what we need more, you know. And that's why I like about America, because they have the freedom of expression, a constitution, whereas in the UK, nothing is written. You know, like people don't know what their rights are, what their fundamental rights are, what they can say or what they can do, or you know, which is quite sad. But
Thank you. While listening to you, I was just remembering that the situation of child labor ameliorated by the time Charles Dickens depicted the situation in his novels. At the same time, we have the huge impact of the Dreyfus affair, and the whole situation changed in favor of Dreyfus when it has been J'accuse, the article in the newspaper by this famous French classic nowadays novelist at the time, Émile Zola. And I was thinking, as a humble actress myself, that when we are marching in order to demonstrate whatever issue is at stake, we don't march as leftist people, as communists, as socialists, as eco-socialists, doesn't matter. We don't march by reciting Das Kapital. We march either by singing at the same time a song, or trying to make an act in the streets in order to make other people participate, or to do something that goes not only to the mind, but also to the heart and to the enthusiasm of people. That by itself, I think it's a huge political responsibility, regardless if artists are members of central committees of parties or they are participating in governments, which they do, actually. And this is also a very strong yet existing stigma, who says that artists are not people who have the capacity to lead political parties or to be prime ministers or to be members of governments, because we need another kind of people to do so.
Who said that?
Everybody.
Sometimes people say to me, because I'm a chairperson of a Communist Party of Finland, that they say that, JP, this is not only a performance, this should be a political party. But Ritva, Harle, you are environmental and community artist from Helsinki. Do you have any political responsibility?
I was thinking when these others were talking, I agree them, but to my mind, it came that Finnish, how we say in Finnish, that don't beat the hand which is giving food for you. And I think artists just are that kind of people who beat the hand, and I think that should be the right for artists. Because I think artists are very politically responsible, but they act in different way. And I think it's not good to be too near politicians, because then if you have too much fun with political people and with leaders, then it might, except you, JP, it might happen so that we forgot to be critical for them. And that's important, because we have to show those, artists are not just for environment, because this environment and these things that you forget and you be passive, that we have enough and too much in this world. But this kind of real art will change changes people's minds that we don't have a space in this moment for it, not enough spaces.
Interesting. I think we should also hear, because we are in Tricoterie in Brussels. It's interesting. I know, Jean-Pierre, you are working for a long history with artists and cultural organizations. I'm very interested in your point of view of all this discussion. Could you please join and comment?
J'allais reposer les questions, mais
I was going to raise the questions again, but, well, just to speak about Belgium in a very simple way and without trying to make sure you understand the structure of our country, because if you understand it, it means I won't have explained it properly, so let's refrain from doing that in any case. But there is no such thing as a Belgian cultural policy, apart from a few museums that belong to the state or that are managed by the state. Culture is managed by the language communities. It's very different. On the French-speaking side, here La Tricoterie belongs to Wallonie-Bruxelles, the Federation, Walloon-Brussels Federation. I come from, so we are under the aegis and we're subsidized by the Ministry of the French community, the Ministry of Culture of the French-speaking community. And there are two different sets of policies between the French-speaking community and the Flemish region. A little while before the pandemic, very tough measures had been taken in France that led to the protest of many artists and theater managers because many subsidies were removed from them, were removed. So the culture budget in the Walloon and Brussels Federation is quite high, and it finances quite a number of jobs. I'm retired now, but I used to be an employee of culture whose wages were paid by the French-speaking community, and I was responsible for a cultural association that had to account for a certain volume of activities, but not for the kind of activities that were carried out, or not about the contents of those activities. It's a very specific structure that's kind of unique in Europe. So it's thousands of jobs, actually, were above the 2% of the national budget used by the French-speaking community in culture and in jobs in culture. During the pandemic, the subsidies to the cultural associations were maintained. So the workers who could no longer work were still being paid. And the associations kept receiving their subsidies, which was important because they could pay their rent and their overhead, even though there was no work. So it is a specificity of the French-speaking community, too. But I also wanted to ask a question to Yannis and to Rita. But let's say to all of you, because you are artists, after all. The Ministry of Labor, the Federal Ministry of Labor, is working on an artist's status. They are working with the trade union organizations and all the artists' associations. they seem to be making progress towards the creation of a specific status for artists. I know that in France, trade union organizations are also working on it. The CGT, among others, seems to be doing the same. Does the same happen in your countries? In Finland, in Greece, and maybe in other countries which are represented here, maybe in Germany, for example. I think there are comrades from Germany still in the room. Do you have this kind of work? Is this a process that is underway? And don't you think that after this forum, it would be a good idea to take an initiative to try and make sure that there is well, to make sure that there is a wish submitted to the European Union that artists should be given a status to make sure they have they earn a living, and they do not always have to struggle for life and struggle for survival. So don't you think that should be a process undertaken at the European level, a European artist status? Si vous me permettez.
His own experience as trade unionist and actor at the same time. I think that we have to start with a notion that goes to everybody and everywhere. From the start of history, no, it would be better to say from the start of mankind history in communities. There was always a relationship between the arts and the artists and the political power that was far more than ambiguous. Because artists want to be free spirits, and that's the way art is created, and they have always a critical eye on what's going on in society and policies. And on the other hand, they need money and protection in order to create art. So they had to have if not a wealth-based, at least a non-so defensive relationship with governments and political power. If this relationship was absent, if this had been absent, we would never have the Renaissance pieces of art, for instance. So this being said, I have to tell you that in Greece, the situation between the government, this government, the neoliberal government, and all the neoliberal governments before of this one, and the civilization as a whole, and art is far from interesting. It's in a very critical position. Though the government, because of the pandemic situation, said that the ministry is going to start to make a first identification, a first description and a depiction of what's going on in the artistic world and the artists, and to have a catalog at least of people that are working in the cultural sector. Nothing has been done, nothing significant has been done yet. On the other hand, the artistic education is all over the place. There is no legislative framework in order to cover that. So it becomes a product also of a profitable situation, because there is no frame in order to defend what's going on in the artistic education. I think Yannis can also have an input in this, and then we'll hear from you about the Finnish experience.
Continuing from the things that you have already said, I would like to mention with the interpretation. It's a failure sometimes if we have to think that some sociologists say that the job of an actor or an artist is sometimes a labor of love. So we, in some minds, we are not connected as being productive as not being part of the production line. That's why, as you already said, throughout the history, we are not being thought as other employees, let's say, as other workers. This thing has to stop at some point. Now answering about what has happened in the Ministry of Labor in Greece and how we are dealing with the problems through the Union of Actors. We are pressing from at least when we were elected in the Union of Actors, every time to have a new meeting with the Ministry of Labor, we are not heard. That's why once a month, it's like a comic right now. It's like a joke. Every month you will see us just under the buildings of the Ministry of Labor doing protests and riots with the minister or with the General Secretary to find solutions giving to them instead of waiting from them to give us the solutions to the problems that we are facing. I would like to say that the only thing that it's been done till now, it's that there's been a catalog of the numbers of workers in different sectors. It's a big matrix that we are giving our data show us to know exactly how the cultural sector is being increased. You have this small amount of money that was given during the pandemic time. I can just refer to you that this amount of money was 534 euros per month. Imagine that it's almost nothing for people that they have families, that they have lost their jobs during these 2 years, and it has created a lot of problems in their families. What else? The question was about if we have the connection with the Ministry of Labor. Yes, as I told you, we are trying to have this connection and giving solutions instead of waiting for the solutions.
Thank you, Yannis. How about Dave in UK? How would you answer Jean-Pierre's interesting and important question about the artist status?
Yeah, if you could repeat the question, I think he spoke in French, so pardon me, I don't understand French.
To repeat the question, if I interpreted it correctly, it's about the artist status and the work the government or the current political, I would call it elite, is working. Do you have any plans or visions to make the artist status better at the moment? Is there any process that you could tell us from the UK?
Not sure they have much process. I know since we exited the EU Brexit, the Arts Funding Council has cut a lot, and like many of your colleagues have said, like artists are people look like, I mean, the lowest, probably the bottom of the bottom, rank of the people, and most of us think that we don't need art, but actually art is something that makes us happy, and we've seen that during the pandemic, whether it be a film, a movie, or stuff like that. And I guess we need to keep on fighting. I mean, I don't know if there's a big movement because I'm not too involved here. But yeah, definitely there certainly needs to be a movement. And I don't think so. It's, whether it's EU or UK, I think it has to be like a global one because at the end of the day, we're all one. I mean, we speak the same language, and that's art. And we can see that art was actually, before we even learned how to speak, there was cavemen, they were drawing. So we are basically very visual person, but because we have indoctrinated by going to college or being brainwashed that art is just someone you do as a hobby, or if you are rich, then yeah, you can afford to do it. Otherwise, you're going to be a struggling artist. And I think that's the wrong concept. And I think we need to promote, we need to help them, because without art, life would be boring. You know, there's art, even the way you spell earth, there's art inside. If you take away art, there's just E and H.
Thanks, Dave.
I would like to.
Sorry, if I say something.
Yes, of course.
I forgot to tell you that also as a member of, as a chairman of international relations in the Hellenic Actors Union, I have a great relationships and through the Fédération Internationale des Acteurs. So we are taking lots of know-how and data through other trade unions, equities all over Europe. And with this know-how, we can handle some of the problems that we are facing. So I wanted to point it out that it's been a great help being a member of the Fédération. I forgot that to tell.
Thank you, Yannis. Of course, it goes without saying that when it comes to Greece, but I don't think it's only a Greek phenomenon, neoliberal governments did nothing in order to ensure even the most essential working rights when it comes to artists and culture workers. For instance, the great majority of every kind of artists would never touch a pension. It is very difficult to collect prove the working time you're having during your career or during your working period as an artist in order to have security, social security, insurance. That is, we're discussing a world and a world which has other borders. They are somehow left behind and they are somehow pushed over when it comes to the rights and to the picture that we have in mind when we're discussing what's going on in labor forces. So we have to take under consideration that cultural workers are very hard workers as everybody else. The difference is that the essence of work is different from somebody who's working at a bank, for instance.
Yeah.
But he's not working less than the others.
Olga, I think I remember sometimes in our meetings I said that you should never allow artists to lead the discussion of culture, because the artists only talk about art and artists' position. Maybe we also should open this debate about cultural workers more than not only artists. But Ritva, do you agree with me that every Finnish artist remembers the debate of artist salary? Where has that gone? Or do you have good news from Finland?
We don't have good news from Finland about the artist salary. We have talking about it, and no, it haven't gone forward. No, eteenpäin. It
hasn't gone forward.
No. We are talking, but it's just talking. And I was thinking this question that it seems that artists, they have always been so grateful if they get a little money. And I think this is the same system like refugees. If they get something, they have to be so grateful. And that's the thing I hate. I hate it. And I hope this government, they start to see that this every money what they put to the culture, it's some kind of investment to our humanity, to our identity, to our future. And that should be important. And I get one idea because of your speech, that maybe we should make the European artist status to everyone and give the artist salary for European artists, and it should come from European budget. And we forgot this national money. Sorry, my English is COVID
Funding,
English.
you mean the national, the funding of every government? The
Yeah,
funding of every
so we
state.
give the funding from European budget to every artist. So maybe they should be more powerful and they should say more important things, because then they mustn't be afraid that if they in a small country you say something wrong, then it's very easy to forget the funding in next time or something like that. What do you think about that?
We have to say, though, in order not to be always on the dark side of the moon, we have to say that as a European Left Party, and not only, together with comrades and friends from all the cultural sector, and together with the collaboration of Europarliamentarians that we have discussed with, there is a possibility now more than ever to open the discussion and to come to results for having a European statute when it comes to artists and cultural workers, and at the same time to have a legislative framework to protect both cultural workers and students in art while they're having their studies, against sexual harassment, against exploitation, financial and sexual exploitation of their own position as artists, and of course the harassment against their personality at any level, which is a huge thing to do regarding the many facets of dangers and exploitation that the culture sector is facing for decades, let alone centuries now. So this was a great thing to start discussing, and we're pushing for results from the European Parliament and the European Committee as well.
Greta, the Swedish Thornberg, would say almost the same thing that you Ritva, said, that it's a lot of blah, 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 and there should be some more action. I'm for the idea of Jean-Pierre's idea and the European left cultural networks plan to establish or write and launch an initiative. That is something interesting, but we can't forget that we should talk about Europe and not EU, and I'm sure Dave can agree on that. And also I would like to add on the Finnish discussion or debate that even though it has been a lot of blah, 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 there has been some process. For instance, there is an interesting debate going on in Finland about the arts grants, the money you get for working period. It's a debate that the grants should be considered as working times and like working permits. So it's a little step towards an idea to see the artist work as a real work. And if on the level of the government, if that is considered as a work, it's a process, I would say. So it's a little light from Finland. Do you agree, Ritva?
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Where are we in our debate?
I think that we have a last issue, and I would like our comrades and friends that joined this discussion to have a short input on that, because it's a very important question. The question is, how can artists in Europe fight the growing influence of the far right, especially the mainstreaming of hate against minorities, LGBTQ people, and anyone regarded as others? The very essence of art and culture goes to the core of this debate. So I think that we may have a short input and to conclude with this. Let's start with Yannis and then.
Yes, this is one of the greatest problems that at least Greece is facing, and I believe also other members of the European Union, where how societies have evolved through the years. Through our political existence, through our works, through our everyday influence with all the means that we all have. These are the tools that we all, cultural workers, artists, performers, should use in order to educate our circles, let's say, through our work. This is the only thing that we can do to, let's say, fight this evolvement of the far right let's say, far right burst of hate speech right now. I'm really not saying how to say. I'm really skeptic of how things are gonna evolve the following years. I'm always optimistic, and I would never like to see on the dark side of the moon, as you just said before, Olga.
Thank you, Yannis. Thank you for having you this evening. Dave?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start with a quote from Nina Simone says, "It's an artist's duty to reflect the time in which we live." And yeah, I mean, basically, we all artists. So we should, instead of like having competition, we should help to encourage, to uplift one another rather than having competition. And I think that's the biggest thing. We shouldn't put one artist down. We should encourage them, motivate them. And if you have stake footing, great. I mean, I'll give you a classic example, which is nothing to do with art, but the Black Panthers was actually one of the group. I mean, they were labeled as communists. Got to unite poor white Irish people, Black people, Latino people, Asian people, and now that what we know in America and in the UK is called free school meals. This is what they're fighting for. They were able to unite everyone, because if you start seeing someone as a different or others, you already lost the battle, because as I said, we all one. And the only way to do this is to have education and love, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, we're all the same. And one thing from my experience, I used to give blood, and on my blood is the card has Neo label on it. And so I asked the nurse, what does it mean? So she said, your blood is stored in the blood bank, and it's used for babies for transfusion, because as a young age you didn't have any disease, and if you have a disease, the baby can't accept that because the immune system is not strong enough. So if now my blood is being saved your child, would you still call me an immigrant, or would you look at me with new eyes? So basically we're all the same.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me this evening. And Ritva?
I think today's hate. Always forget this, Mick. I think we have to just put the zero tolerance to everything hate speech, and and that's very important. And in some way, we maybe have to, not maybe, we must in our own speeches, when we speak, we have to use respectable speech to each other and the dialogue, and we have to listen each other. I think when we listen and we try to understand the others, then we can have the zero tolerance.
We're almost at the end of this session and at the end of this culture assembly. I want to give the floor to you in the audience. I don't know if you have questions, remarks, or comments maybe. And if you do, please raise your hand. I will give you a microphone.
Hello, I'm Maja Oven from Slovenia, Levica. I would like to actually go back to this initiative, European initiative of artist status. In Slovenia, there was also a problem between Corona time, because some artists, or let's say people who work in culture, are connected with institutions, so they are employed. And for them, it was now hard time because they got salaries as ordinary, but the others, let's say self-employed, didn't get any work, as it was discussed today in this roundtable. So this was really problem, but then a state actually gave some support twice for 3 months, so everything together for 6 months, like 700 euro per month, which was like kind of support for COVID time. But the problem about the self-employed, they also have status, you know, we have like people who work for institutions, and the others are self-employed, and some of the self-employed, they're getting money for insurance. I mean, not getting money directly, but they have paid insurance for health insurance and basic security. So actually, it's somehow not fair situation, and institutions are already like for 30 years closing jobs because, and they said everything must be done within the institution, or for example, some artists get exhibitions and places and some not. So actually it was my proposal to equalize that everybody would have the same insurance, this security, basic security, and to somehow to influence or to support that institutions are, that is obligatory for institutions to give work, or let's say for artists, to help artists to get job and work. And to open also, for example, because some are artists and some people are just working culture in different fields, just that everybody would have equal possibilities to get the job, because it's somehow, so what it was like idea to solve this problem within the state. But now, when I was listening this discussion, I think it's a very good idea to give this initiative on European level, because then also country can apply and get really sources just for this purpose, not for something else. But it was like, I think that first is to give the possibility, the opportunity artists and people who work in culture, also humanists, to get the work. But if not, then there also they could get this basic income. Also, these possibilities could be, for example, for those who are just, I don't know, ill, or just that they cannot work, or somehow they don't get this. It was just opinion, and I just want to say that I think this initiative on European level would be really great.
Thank you, thank you.
Merci de l'avoir exprimé.
Thank you very much for this comment. I think, I mean, I need to tell you that we have already got a contact with the left group at the European Parliament. And so we have good contact with the members of that group. We also have excellent contact with the MEP responsible for culture within the group of the left within the parliament. And there are interesting initiatives, including a resolution that was voted with quite a large majority, a resolution supporting the 2% project, meaning 2% of our country's GDP should be dedicated to culture. That was voted with quite a large majority by the parliament. Of course, well, the European Council obviously hasn't really sanctioned that or supported that idea, but at least it's been voted by the parliament, and maybe we can push this idea forward. Anyone else, please? If not, I think we can, well, first of all, thank Yannis, thank Dave, thank the members of the panel here on stage. Thank you to the people here in the audience. Thank you to the interpreters for their support. And I think we can now maybe watch the movie, please.
Thank you all. And we have a nice evening. Stay with us because we have very interesting plenaries after this one. And we're saying goodbye with a video. La, 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 la. La 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 de la zutina pame dosta madiane mame zemedidia madianame Edeles que cho dejame Zemediria Marianame Edeles que cho dejame Zeleno pla e bacave dai visotai Madiana mendostaiaba Lereles que cho dejame Onne nine nindere Oh la la li na 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 Alom alom na 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 ni na 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 Zeleno pra e pac Ave dai visata Madiana mendostaiaba Lereles que cho
Ce film à nos amis et camarades.
This movie was shot by our two Judith from Hungary. Judith Morva is one of the two. So thank you to our Hungarian friends for this. Thank you to all of you here for your participation to this cultural assembly, and let's continue trying to push and fight and work for more support for artists in general. Culture is a common good, and it's something that we should all fight for. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.